Well, folks, it is 2026, which means that we, you, me, made it through another year. Um, and in thinking about sharing a first video of the year, there was a moment that I think about often that came to me from when I was on a camping trip a few summers ago. And there came a moment where we were staring out at the Great Lakes. It was sunset, it was beautiful, and the kind of moment that tends to make people contemplative, you know? And one of the women I was with was saying that she had this office job that she was not particularly passionate about, and she really wants to just live her dream. And I asked her, "Oh, what would you really like to do?" And she said that her dream was to move to Louisiana and become a ghost tour guide, which I thought was really cool. Not because I'm into ghosts, I'm not, um, but I just loved it immediately, the specificity, the quirkiness that it was so her, and that was her dream. And so I asked her, "Well, what's stopping you from doing this?" And she just kind of looked at me and shrugged. She didn't even have an answer. She wasn't resisting the dream. She just couldn't name what it was that was in the way. And I've thought about her many times since then and talking to people who speak about a longing they have, they've been carrying for years, especially people who want to write a book or have a story to tell and not telling it. And more often than not, I find that the obstacles are there, they're real, they're just unnamed. And that's when I realized that when something stays unnamed, it tends to run the show. So, for example, I know that many people I talk to are circling a story that they want to tell. They're standing at the threshold of a story and they don't quite know what's stopping them. And more often than not, it's just this fear that has become atmospheric. And so the first task when it comes to this is to make the fear tangible. So, we can think of our first task of the year is to make our fears tangible. And you can do this through a very simple exercise where you set a timer for, say, 5 minutes and you write as fast as you can without stopping, without editing. You begin with the sentence, "If I tell this story," and then you just list all the things that you fear will happen if you tell the story. It doesn't matter how trivial, how dramatic, or how taboo, even, this is just for you. And you allow yourself to write and name the things that you normally push away, things you normally don't name. And then when the timer ends, you write one more fear. You write the fear that you didn't put down on the page, because that's most often the most potent one. And can be an effective exercise because when fear is acknowledged, it stops ruling from the sidelines, the shadows. But also, oftentimes, lurking in that fear is usually the reason why you need to tell the story. Fear points you directly to what matters. And I have a mentor who always says, all resistance exists to protect something. So in doing an exercise like this, you are uncovering what it is that you're protecting, and then you can work with it. Now, there are many familiar fears that many of us carry. They're universal. Fear of rejection. I'll be rejected if I tell the story. I'll be misunderstood. My family will hate me. I'll fail. I'll do it wrong. I'll be seen as a bad person. I'll discover that I'm a bad person. Or I'll be alone. So if you recognize yourself in any of those, those are human universal fears. But the issue is when if you wait for these fears to subside before you begin, you may never begin. And when we allow ourselves to write from our fears instead of waiting it out, then what we create instantly becomes more relatable, more universal even. So what I say is you don't just tolerate your fears, you can get curious about them because they are actually offering you clues. And when your fears live only inside your mind, they grow. But when you put them somewhere, like on paper, they become something that you can actually work with. And that's when things usually deepen because there is the things that you think you fear, and then there's the fear beneath the fear, right? So if you are standing on the edge of something right now, if there is something you want to begin, a story you want to tell, just know that fear intensifies right before authorship. And that usually happens because authorship, it's allowing you to take responsibility for your own perspective. And so that's why the fear often becomes more intense as you step into um, your project. And unfortunately, fear keeps so many thoughtful, ethical, creative, deeply caring people standing at the edge and not moving forward. And as you begin, that fear may not disappear, but you'll find that it just changes its shape and it becomes information instead of an obstacle. So that's where I am this January, staying close to these questions, listening to what's underneath. And perhaps that can be a place to start for you. It's can simply be naming what's standing in the way.